Hello everyone, welcome to Badass Ways to Relieve Stress and Beat Anxiety, the masterclass series on dealing with stress, calming your worries and gaining back control of your life. Your straight up resource for actionable advice that will take you one step closer to a happier, healthier life. I'm your host, my name is Juno, founder of Avalon Wellbeing Academy, and I'm on a mission to help humanity improve its health and well-being. Let's make a deal. Commit to taking one action after you watch this interview. I would like to introduce Dr. Toni Galardi. Dr. Toni speaks to an international audience as diverse as the Xerox Corporation, Global Telesummits, and ABC, Fox, and Gaia TV network viewers. Her topics include managing crisis-driven transitions, personal and work-related addictions, and career repurposing. She coined the term LifeQuakes. Her mission is to eliminate yours and humanity's addiction to crisis as the prime motivator for change. Additionally, Dr. Galardi works with individuals and groups, teaching them how to get unstuck and discover their own uniquely designed roadmap for a joyous new life. Welcome, Dr. Toni. It's an honor to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm great, and it's a pleasure to be here with you, Juno.
Thank you. Likewise. And I can't wait to start diving deep into this amazing topic for today. So first of all, I would like if you can tell us a little bit more about about your story and how you got here.
Well, that's a story. How I ended up working in the field of, managing crisis-driven transitions was my very first job out of college was on Skid Row. And I was working with junkies on Skid Row, and things started changing in terms of violence started to come to Skid Row, and the area that I was, the street I was working on at that time wasn't violent, but I started to feel something was changing. So I talked to my boss and asked him to get a security guard. And he said, no, he would be there. There's no problem. And a week later, a guy got through screening, and when I tried to escort him, asked him to leave, he then grabbed me by the neck and tried to choke me to death. So what that led to, that trauma, because when I arrived at the emergency room, I had handprints on my neck and neck injury and on, and had to go through rehab and, was off work for a number of months. And through the nightmares I was having at night, my then fiance suggested I get some therapy. And I went to see a therapist, and out of working with her, she said, you would make a great therapist, and I had really poo-pooed becoming a therapist because it was something my mother thought I was really good at growing up. Yeah. So I ended up taking one course and loved it, and went to a really good school in Orange County, California called Chapman University, which is known all over the world. And went through a training that led to my becoming a Jungian psychotherapist. But there were a number of other life crises every 7 years that would happen to me and when I was not making the changes I needed to make, something dramatic would happen. So after the third near fatal experience, which was a mold infestation in the walls of my house, I realized that I needed to learn how to prepare, that there was a way of being able to prepare for change, that most people think, that it just happens to them because they're not noticing the signs that it's time to change. And so I developed this model, the LifeQuake repurposing method, which was to help people prepare for that state, what in my model is stage 3, radical severance from the old life. There are 2 stages that precede that are about literally paying attention. In stage 1, I talk about, where are you bored? Where are you no longer, when something at one time was really fun and interesting to you or joyous for you and it no longer is, that's a sign. It's a sign something needs to change. So I'm not talking about the kind of boredom where someone is bored all the time. I'm talking about an onset where You know, it could be your marriage. It could be the exercise routine that you do. You know, if you've always been a jogger and you start getting injuries, that's a sign, you know. So that, you know, if someone doesn't start making changes, and often what people do is self-medicate. You know, they go into distraction, they go on the internet, more social media, drink a little more, which is something that I did. I, you know, was having 2 glasses of wine every night as a way of trying to, at this point, stay in my marriage. So there's a lot of ways in which we try to compromise our integrity, you know, to manage this thing that needs to change and that we're not changing.
That's fascinating. So basically it's, let's say, like a roadmap so people can know when they are just to hit pretty much like, you know, a roadblock. And just to avoid that, they could see the signs and they can take action right before that.
Yeah. And, you know, because I have worked with thousands of people over the years, you know, and interviewed hundreds of people for the book that I wrote. The first book was The LifeQuake Phenomenon. And this was a 10-year anniversary that I gutted the book and updated all the neuroscience that we have now on change mastery, and interviewed more thought leaders, you know, for this second book, The LifeQuake Miracle. That what I saw is that there are patterns. And when you fear change because you equate it with loss, that is what causes people to have all the disruption and chaos show up, you know, in their lives. So we're in a time of great global transition. And the model that I developed many years ago was meant to be an interface between whatever personal changes that are going on in your life or need to go on and what's going on the global level, because they're very connected.
Yeah, that's yeah, totally. And so you mentioned fear. So how can we deal with the fear of change?
You know, it's all about the body. You know, when I work with someone, the very beginning, it's all about having them go right into, I have them go right into their body, into the place where they're feeling, let's say it's a job change, that they're miserable in their job. You know, when I did, I gave an interview for the Gaia TV network, Dr. Sue Morter's The Healing Matrix. And I didn't think anybody was going to see this show. Honestly, I figured none of my friends had the Gaia app. I didn't think anybody would see it. 300 people just emailed me, just like a barrage of people miserable in their jobs, you know. And I just knew that there needs to be a way for people to be able to find their new path. And most people think that whatever they've been doing that has made them money and what they've been trained to do, for example, is something they have to hold on to. You know, in corporate America, they call it the golden handcuff syndrome. And so many times people come to me in that because they have the health benefits, right? And all these things. So they don't think they can make any changes. Unfortunately, if you do not follow your soul's calling, and this is where paying attention to your dreams, I have people keep a dream journal, you know, noting, you know, what are the themes that are showing up? How is your unconscious trying to guide you to a new life? And also, you know, what I call divine coincidences, you know, also known as synchronicities. Are you paying attention? If you slow down, and this is the key element, is to begin to, meditation helps, yoga nidra helps, tai chi, qigong. These are things that can help slow your nervous system down enough to get quiet enough to actually hear the call from your soul.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. And this is probably very, let's say, useful during these times of uncertainty, because it actually life forces us to slow down.
Yeah.
People probably at the beginning were like, oh, what is going to happen? What am I going to do? But what we need to do is exactly what you said. We are being right now forced to slow down. And I think there's a really good outcome for a lot of people who were, you know, just into like the do and more.
There's an opportunity for me, because the way I define a LifeQuake, you know, LifeQuakes have been redefined since I created the model 30 years ago. They've been used, the term has been used by others in books to describe just a crisis, you know, an upheaval. And my definition of a life quake is the soul, the labor pains of the soul waking up to the next level of its evolution. So it's about rebirth that may look like chaos in your life, but that in this time that we're in, it's about how to be able to look for how to reorganize. And sometimes it just means the pause button long enough to be able to pay attention to how you're being guided. So that's why it's my way of working, with helping people find their true soul purpose is very right-brained. It's not a left-brain, career counseling approach.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating. And if you can, talking about LifeQuakes, what is the LifeQuakes repurposing method for managing change?
So, you mean the guide or with the book? You're talking about the guide that I created?
Yeah, the method. Yeah, I think that's the guidance.
So I have a couple of, different products. So on LifeQuake.com, I wanted to create for those who can't see me because I can't work with everyone. I created a membership site so that once a month I can come together with people and actually help them, because I'm trained as a shaman. So we create what's called a quantum field. And in that quantum field, we can make changes. We can accelerate, clearing from your body things that you've had maybe lifetimes old. So once a month, I do these kind of clearings. I also do an astrology newsletter once a week for people who are in the membership site, so that they can actually be guided for days, because there are actual days in your work week that are not the right days for initiating any new projects. Most people have heard of things called Mercury retrogrades, that's not a good time to sign contracts. It's not a good time to make agreements. So it's very much, they're like mini Mercury retrogrades, but it's called the moon void of course. And when the moon is void of course, it's like nothing gets created. This has been studied empirically. Restaurants opened on a void moon typically have failed more often than restaurants opened on other days. People who buy things, shopping on a void moon day, there's a higher incidence of returning these items. So there are times during the week when it's best to be able to be negotiating agreements, to be initiating, between the new moon and the full moon is the best time to actually launch a project. So I give that kind of career advice in this membership site. And then once a month, for everyone who signs up for my newsletter, they get a free monthly of guide, for everything that you need, to guide you through your work week. But those who are in the membership site, for probably less than what you pay for a coffee or a kombucha, and at your local, once a week is what it's going to cost me. I only charge $25 a month for all of them, and they get replays when they do the activation, so everybody gets to re-experience the work that I've done with them. So that's for people who can't afford. Then I have other products, which is the CD, the LifeQuake Repurposing Method is a CD, and it has guided meditations that help you go through. It's the system that I've created for the 7 stages of going, and how to become more resilient in the face of change, how to really reformat your nervous system. All of that's in there. How to be able to have tools for looking for what you're here to do next. So all of that's on the CD. I also have an audio course that's on the membership site, and I'm now in the midst of creating an online course. So for people who want to take a deeper dive, that will be something they can also purchase. So there's a lot of ways to work with me, from just getting my newsletter, which is free, to to working with me personally. I wanted to create as many different levels of entree into having access to me as I possibly could, especially in this time.
Yeah, thanks for that. And speaking about astrology, I read something really interesting in your website, actually, which actually I'm going to ask you about astrology. But what you wrote is that even J.P. Morgan, he had a how can I call it, like a consultant, someone reading his astrology on his team, so he could know how to make, when were the best moments for deals, right? So I think that's fantastic, and leads me to my next question, which is how do you use astrology to prepare people for change?
Well, in a few ways. One, what I had just illuminated, which is, through a newsletter, and that gives people more general tools. And then those who come to me for a personal consult are what I call a soul blueprint session. I look at, because we have a contract, soul contract, we come into this earth plane. And what it helps me by looking at someone's soul contract in their astrological chart and their numerological chart, which is based on your name and your birth date for numerology and your birth date, time, and place for astrology. There's repeated themes that I see, and I can also see strengths in a person's. I can see, to help forewarn someone that, I had a client, for example, who I could see her father was older, and I just said, your father may not, next year could be a time when he passes, and that actually did come to pass, and it helped her to have that information to begin preparing for his passing. So there are a lot of ways that I use astrology when I'm working with someone individually to help them really guide them. And so when I do business consulting, my clients who hire me as a business coach on retainer also use me for both the shamanistic, which is clearing any emotional blockages they might be experiencing on a particular day, problem solving with their business. I have a lot of tools, and then the astrology. I had a client who's very high up in this advertising agency, and he said, I need to make a decision next week. What day is best? And I was able to look at his chart and tell him. So astrology gives me the advantage of helping my clients find the best time to do things, and be prepared for what could be sudden change.
It's fascinating, because one of the things we were talking just before starting this interview is that right now it's like a time where things in the past and things that were a little bit out there now are becoming more normal, because now there's science proving more things, and we are mixing all what we knew with the new, and I think that's such a great tool for just for going forward in the into the next steps, right? Like, it's kind of like seeing a little bit the future, or be prepared. Yes. And just knowing that about, just share about JP Morgan, I think it just, people knew it, right? Like, people knew it from probably
presidents. This is the best kept secret in America. Let me tell you, in both politics and business, they never felt they could, although, because he was a billionaire, JP Morgan, when he was questioned by the press about it, he was the first billionaire. So he said, maybe millionaires don't use astrologers, but billionaires do. So obviously what he was inferring is, it's worked for me. So, and it's been used by a number of presidents behind the scenes, all on the QT, and in corporate America a lot. So now what's happening, what's bringing it mainstream, is that the whole millennial generation are very much into astrology, so much so that the New York Times, the LA Times, and the New Yorker all cover this. So they're very much, I think, because I think it only makes sense if people understand it's all mathematical frequency. The art of astrology is in the interpretation. But what we're looking at are the exchange of energies between the planets in our galaxy and ourselves. When we are born, there's an imprint on the etheric body. The Curlian photography has proven that we have this etheric body that surrounds our physical body. And at birth, there's like a software program that's put on top of your etheric body, so that when the planets move through at certain mathematical moments of time, it triggers life events in your life. And it's in the interpretation where the astrologer can actually warn a client. Like, I had a client, because you never know how it's going to show up. And I said to this client, she's South African, and she was going home to visit her family in South Africa. And I just said, be very careful. There could be some kind of physical constraint where you are constrained physically, like it could be somebody attacking you or something like that, like because this particular transit can hit in a way that it can actually cause malice from another person, like being robbed or, you know, attacked. And what it ended up being, see, that's why you never know. But what I was able to do was to prepare her for something. And what it ended up being was that they had trouble getting back because COVID-19 broke, and they had trouble coming back from South Africa. So, and then her business as a, you know, she had a Pilates studio. And so her business was affected because now she couldn't have clients coming to the studio anymore. So this is where the physical constraint showed up, you know. But the key is it's not psychic reading, but it's preparation. It's letting someone know, here's when there could be some challenging times. Just know and just be prepared so that you don't take it personally, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So how can we stay resilient in times of crisis?
So doing stress management tools every day, you know, getting enough sleep, things that help with resilience has to do with your neurology. You know, what allows a person to respond to change rather than to react is having a calm nervous system. That means eating well, you know, making sure that you get enough protein, fat, good fats, essential fats like salmon, things like this, essential fatty acids. Making sure that you get enough sleep and meditation. Meditation, I cannot say enough about how we have all the studies that meditation completely reformats the prefrontal lobe of the brain so that when things do happen, you're able to respond more easily. The other thing we know that helps with resilience, this is a big one, is oxytocin. So the more connected you are to others, the more you reach out, you know, in this time when there's a lot of isolation, reaching out through the internet or reaching out to friends and finding out how they're doing. We know that altruism, for example, you know, being humanitarian towards others stimulates T cells, and that creates a healthy immune system. So the more you do for others, you know, in balance with taking good care of yourself, will also help to your neurology to be able to be more resilient in the face of change. Your chemistry is better.
That I love that because it's at the end, you know, the human connection, right? Like this is one of the things we're here to do. Just live in community, connect with others, have, you know, share moments and deep conversations so we can get to actually know how they're doing and their struggles and etc.
Yes, indeed.
So I know you're, you help people, you know, with life transitions, and at the end, you know, you help them to find that that purpose in life or that thing they are looking for. And so I would like to ask you, how can anyone create a new life design for their next chapter that inspires them into a passionate, soul-fulfilled purpose?
Well, it's a step-by-step process, you know, by following the roadmap, you know, you can get my book in a Kindle format for like $10 on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, or you can get it in hardback for $25. And in that is this 7-stage roadmap with tools, with interviews with people who are major thought influencers in my field, with clients I worked with. So there's a roadmap there for helping people step by step. The products that I mentioned on my website, LifeQuake.com, will also help with being able to help you guide yourself toward a more passionate life. What it really takes is courage. It takes the courage to, and I think the self-worth to say, I deserve more. That this chapter of my life was wonderful. It served me well, but I am now ready for something that reflects my more authentic self. And so having the courage to take one step at a time, one little step. When I work with clients, that's all I focus on is whatever they can tolerate. And everyone is different. What one person can do in terms of making changes and what someone else can do can vary dramatically. And so I have a very empathic nature in terms of knowing just who I can empower in what way I can empower that person.
I really like it, one step at a time. Sometimes we humans want to take everything at the same time, but one thing at a time makes sense.
Yeah.
We are getting close to the end of our session with you today, Dr. Toni, but I would like to ask you, if you were to leave listeners with one single action today, what would it be?
I would suggest this exercise I give, in the very early stages of this book, which is connecting the dots. And that is just like when you were a kid and used to, those coloring books where there were dots, and if you connected the dots, you got like an animal formation, like a rhinoceros, a giraffe, a cat, whatever. When you start paying attention to your life and noticing, where does my energy go up now? What colors am I attracted to now? What kind of exercise am I feeling drawn to now? Rather than being in an old story. Part of being in fifth dimension reality, which is what we're moving into now, is to be out of the old story and out of the future catastrophizing, fear of change, but being right here in the now and paying attention. Where does my energy go up now? What are the kinds of TV programs do I like? And writing it down. So keeping a log, a journal for 3 weeks of what are all the things that I'm noticing, even subtle interests. Write it down. The only thing you don't put in this journal is what is boring you, what you don't want to do anymore, no complaints. It's only that which is bringing your energy up. And at the end of 3 weeks, take a look at it helps to either work with a coach or work with a friend and ask them, maybe, by looking at all the things you've written down, what are you being guided towards? Is there something that is a theme in this? When I first created this exercise, I had sold my practice, and I decided it was at a time when I was still doing psychotherapy, and it felt like it took too long. I didn't believe it anymore. So I walked away and I started studying shamanism, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I did this exercise with myself, and I wrote down, all the things that I noticed, and there were some connections between, it was very interesting. There were some connections between loving to cook and feed people in my home, which was something I like to do, entertain people in my home, and what I ended up doing next, which was I became a talk show host. So I was a host on television for 2 years, and I was going into everyone's living room while they were eating a meal, right? So yeah. You never know how what may seem like two things that are completely divergent from each other may have a connection. So, just stay curious. That's what I really, stay open and curious as to what is next for you now.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. That's something actually personally I'm gonna do as well. Well, before we leave, I would like to ask you, we have a free gift from Dr. Toni for our viewers. So if you can tell us a little bit more, what is it and where they can get it, please.
Okay. So it's called the LifeQuake Preparedness Guide, and it will be, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll be able to get it. I just designed it in this last few days. And just like there's an earthquake preparedness kit, and inside that, there's a flashlight and there's water and snacks and things like this. So what this is I have you literally take it apart, because it's an ebook, and you put one tool inside the bathroom, and that's what you do when you wake up and you go into the bathroom in the morning, and what you do at night before you go to, after you brush your teeth. Then I have a tool, and that's you're supposed to, take that, printed it out, and put it in your bedroom, and that's what you're supposed to do, which is the evening download before you go to sleep at night. And then there's one for your kitchen, so that you have something that literally throughout the day reminds you to slow down, to develop some good stress management tools. And I just thought this would be a great way of just kind of introducing people to my work that's free. So.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. We're going to have links somewhere here on the page so people can click, go and download it. And yeah, I just right now want to say thank you so much for all this time, all your wisdom, all what you just shared. It's incredible. And thanks for your mission in the world. Like, it's fantastic how you mix, you know, the, let's say, traditional kind of way to helping people with astrology and with, you know, your passion. We can feel it, right? Translate into everything you do. So thanks so much for being who you are in the world and for this time with us and our viewers too.
Thank you, Juno. It was a pleasure for me to be here and an honor, truly an honor. Thank you.
So for everyone watching, we're going to have more speakers. We're going to have more great and badass ways to relieve stress and anxiety. My name is Juno, and stay tuned. See you in the next video. Thank you. Thanks again, Toni. Bye.